Wherever you are, I would like to welcome you to Let's Talk with Pastor Shaw. On this particular show, we address issues of marriage, issues of family life. Many things are covered here, including retirement, business, leadership development, health, and what have you. And for tonight, we are basically addressing a very, very hot topic, or a very, very important topic. We are looking at the differences between supportive and interfering parents in law. And I'm sure you're hearing me clearly. I'm talking of supportive parents in law. How are they different from interfering parents in law? And I'm sure the whole world has been waiting for this hour for us to go through this. And by the way, it is our culture that you as viewers can actually send in your questions so that my panelists can look at them. And you can also send in your comments. We will greatly appreciate that. Let me also quickly say to my panelists here, if there is anyone with a gadget which is on either a phone or something else, may you switch it off. We can hear some feedback in the background. And also to help me go through this very important topic, I've got 4 panelists with me here. I've got Mr. Goli there, Mrs. Muzata, Prof. Pena, and Pastor Udiri. And I am going to ask each one of them to self-introduce, maybe in less than a minute, who are you and stuff like that. I'm sure people are waiting to know more about yourself. Maybe let me start there with Goli.
Okay, my name is Sipho Tariro Guli. I'm an elder at Swane Central SDA Church. I work for an international NGO where I am responsible for HR, procurement, and administration for South and Eastern Africa.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sipho there. And friends, again, let me appeal, the 4 of you. Is there anyone with a machine that is on a phone or something? Maybe just deaden it so that it doesn't appear with the system. While you are doing that, let's hear who Barbara is.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Barbara Sethulia Muzata, and I professionally work in marketing and communications for an agriculture company looking after Africa, Middle East. And as an ordinary person, I'm a daughter-in-law, I'm a mother, and I'm a wife. Yeah. And I look forward to bringing my experience as a daughter-in-law to this conversation this evening. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. We appreciate that. And I'm sure people is a son-in-law. You are a daughter-in-law. Sorry, before I go to guys, let's double check if there is another phone that you have there, or maybe a computer that is on. Let us just keep one gadget alive. And our IT guys there, down there where you are, may you tell the other guys to switch off their phones so that at least we are working with one phone down there. I'll appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Madam Mukwena, maybe in a nutshell, who are you?
Good evening. I'm Gibuhida Mukwena, and I'm a public health academic. I'm also a social and behavioral scientist within public health. I was once a daughter-in-law many years ago, but now I'm a mother-in-law. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Welcome to the studio. Let's have some
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mubiri. I'm a pastor in the TOC in the Greater North District. And I am a father-in-law, so I do have some little bit of experience and wisdom to share.
Oh, beautiful. When you say TOC, exactly what is that?
Trans-Orange Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Oh, yes, that's the regional head office of the Seventh-day Adventist Church here in Joburg, and we appreciate, Pastor, that you could be here. Now, friends, the whole world is waiting to hear the difference between a supportive parent-in-law and an interfering parent-in-law. And before we can get there, I want us to set a base quickly. What is marriage? When a parent says, my son is now married and my daughter is married, when a mother says, my son is married and my daughter is married, what exactly do they have in their brains in terms of the privileges and the rights that their children have over their marriage, and the privileges and the rights that the parents have over the marriage of their own children? What does the law say? What does culture say? What does the church say? In a nutshell, let's try to set the stage here. What is marriage in view of what I've said? Before we go to parents-in-law, what do they think marriage is? Maybe Barbara, do you want to come in first?
Yes, I'm smiling at that, Pastor, because there is a belief that we as young people have about what marriage is, and I'll start with the definition that we were given as the church, or maybe from a biblical perspective, where the man and woman both leave, their families and start a life together, build a life together. But at the same time, we always get the shock when we get there or start that life together, realizing that at the end of the day, it's not really about us only on our own, but it's really us building that life together with the support of still the families that have raised us and brought us up. So yes, we are supposed to be starting a family as the two of us, but with the support of the family, of the parents, and the rest of the extended family from both sides.
Yes. Oh, okay, that's fine. We are going through a lot of difficulty with our technology. We got something from you. Simple. What do you think when you got married? What do you think you were doing? And did your parents have the same understanding of what you were doing?
Yeah. So, Pastor, I think your question was summed up in three. Your original question. What is marriage in terms of culture? What is marriage in terms of law? What is marriage in terms of religion? And if you look at these three things, you can't exactly marry them. Okay. You can't put them together because it brings with it other little challenges that are there. Because when I look at it from a religion perspective, it's talking to me about Genesis 2:24. One shall live and cleave. Now, when I look at it from a cultural perspective, it is saying we have brought somebody in, who is now ours. Therefore, we give the surname, and this is now ours. You see, and by law, it just recognizes men and woman, husband and wife. That is law. So if we try to mix those three together, it doesn't necessarily mix. Okay. Now, from a personal perspective, answering your second question, I will put it across that it is somewhat diluted, and it is diluted because of a certain cultural basis that comes with it. So the parents will understand in part Genesis 2:24, and they will say, okay, our child now been betrothed to me, or I have now been betrothed to Victoria, who is the wife. At the same time, they will also believe that the two families have also been brought together. So we are now one, and so the families now are now almost one.
Yes. Okay.
But
Now,
can I come in? Sorry, Pastor. In response to what Sipho has just said, for me, I think it's easy to actually intermarry the three aspects, especially if all parties understand what their roles are within that marriage. And it brings us to the topic that we're actually discussing today. And the conflict in the three aspects that is describing come in because of the interference that we're talking about. But if there was no interference, it would all be in those three facets or pillars actually work out very well.
I really appreciate how you are bringing it in here. Both the church and the civil society are not necessarily on a collusion course when it comes to the legality of marriage and whatever. Maybe it is the application that we are going to look at and address. So I like the idea of fusing the three together and see where we stand in terms of application. I don't know, our team was there. Any one of you who has something to add to
this? I think, I think when people get married, when you get married, you are extending your social sphere. So you belong to family A, and when you get married to family B, you are just expanding your social sphere. So in other words, those people that you are marrying a son, or you get married to a daughter, it means then that your influence, your responsibilities, your social interactions have now expanded. However, what is important is culturally, biblically, and legally, you and your spouse are a family on your own. So there are certain things that will require just the two of you, decisions that will require just the two of you, but outside of the two of you, you have your parents-in-law, and you have your sisters-in-law, your brothers-in-law, and your uncles-in-law, and now you are part of this family. So that's how it should work. So there are certain things that are only your concern, you and your husband. But because we are social beings, you don't only look after, you don't only consider you and your husband because of the in-laws.
Okay, no, that's fine. I hear that.
I think, can I just come in there, Pastor?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, look, I think your primary question was what is marriage, and maybe that's what we need to look at and unpack. And I'm speaking here as a pastor of a Christian denomination, and who believes in the Bible. And I would like to say fundamentally and primarily, marriage is what God defines it to be, and that is two people coming together and in a union of holy matrimony. And the implication of that is marriage involves three people or three persons. It involves the wife, the husband, and God. Because remember that it was God who said it is not good for a man to be alone. So, and the Bible then says, a man shall leave his parents and live to his wife. So the further implication of that is that for a marriage to actually be said to be a marriage, there needs to be an attachment of two people, one to the other. But for that attachment to happen, there must be a detachment from one's parents on both sides. So there's an attachment, there's a detachment in order that there should be an attachment. Now, when we get to the cultural aspect of that, it's the exemplification of the principle. And I would simply put it by saying, in the cultural context, while we acknowledge and while we recognize the fact that there has been a detachment and attachment, there is no necessarily a disassociation or dissociation. So the cultural aspect brings that thought to the fore. That while there is a detachment and attachment at another level, there is no necessarily a dissociation. And then we can further unpack that and what that actually means.
Yes, I hear that.
My question.
Before you come in. Okay, come in, Barbara. Yeah, come in. It's okay.
I was going to ask, with regards to what the pastor is saying, is it only the man who leaves? Should the woman not leave as well? Because from my observation, sometimes you find that the men.
There must be a detachment from both sides.
Oh, so the leaving is happening from both sides.
Okay.
It must happen from both sides.
Yeah, we are going to put that to a test, because one of the reason why we are having this program here is because there are sons-in-law who believe like they have not left because the parents are hanging in there, and there are also daughters who have a feeling like they can feel the heavy hand of the parents, that they're still grabbing to her, and the parents have not actually left. Whether this is just a perception, we are going to discuss it, or whether it is real, we're going to discuss it, because we need to be very forthright and clear in terms of understanding what does it mean to live. And in order to understand that, we want to understand from a supportive parent point of view and from an interfering parent point of view. And both of these, we want to look at the negative and positive of the supportive, negative and positive of the interfering parent, and the factors that cause them to be supportive or to interfere and whatever. And before we go there, let's start off with the supportive parent. How does a supportive parent project themselves? And also in quotes, even in terms of the two shall live, and you are a parent who has been left, how does a supportive parent play around this with this principle?
Can I?
Okay.
Can I try to respond?
Yeah,
you see,
please.
I think the issue of whether parents-in-law are supportive or interfering, it really depends on the social interactions between the younger couple and the older couple.
Okay.
You know, it also depends on the personalities.
Yes.
It has a lot to do with your background, where you come from. You know, there are some people, even as children, who feel that their parents are interfering in their lives. We are not yet talking about marriage, but this young man or this young woman may feel that my parents are interfering. They want to know where I am. They're just in my face all the time.
Yes.
So depending on your background, your personality, and your experience.
Yes.
Then that's when you will define interference or supportive. Yes.
But the question,
it's not only one-sided. The same with the parents. Some parents are very engaged and sort of control every aspect of their children's lives. So if I'm following my son and I'm telling him what to eat for lunch and which shirt to wear, etc. When he gets married, I'm going to continue with that, not even realizing that I'm interfering, but that's my personality and the interactions that I've had with my son for 25 years.
Okay, that helps us to understand some of the factors that influence interfering and being supportive. But the question I've asked is, how do we see that this behavior is of a parent who is supportive? How do they project that?
Well, look, Pastor, if I should come in there.
Yeah.
This subject is a very complex subject. And
yes,
it has too many variables in it.
Yes.
And we want to probably deal with it in as simple a manner as we possibly can, without necessarily being too simplistic.
Yes.
Now the question was, what is a supportive parent, or what kind of parent is a supportive parent?
Yeah.
And how do we know that these parents are supportive?
Yes.
Just to put it very simply, supportive parents-in-law or parents would be parents who would want to see their children, because now both of them are their children, standing on their own and being able to make decisions independent of their parents, and being able to build their home and their own little kingdom and their own little culture, which exists within a broader culture of either the family, the broader family, or the clan, or the society, or the nation.
Yes.
But supportive parents will be parents who will enable, who will capacitate the young couple to be able to stand on their own, and parents who understand, by the way, that they're not going to be there forever, and they will not make their children depend on them in terms of the decisions they make, and we will basically get into probably the nitty-gritty of this, but in terms of the decisions they make, in terms of how they live their lives, how they plan their lives, how they plan their future. But supportive parents will enable their children to be on their own, grow their wings, fly on their own, without parents being forever a factor on which this couple depends.
So
can I try, Murid?
Yes.
Can I try to say that what Pastor Mudiri is saying is a supportive parent is one who knows boundaries, who knows that my boundary ends here, and going further, I'll be interfering. On the other hand, this parent then would have the best interest and knows when to talk and when to keep quiet, when to act and when to stop acting. It's a parent who will be ready enough, wise enough to allow his or her married children to make their mistakes and learn from them.
Okay, this is before you come in, Sipho. I just want to sum up for the sake of our viewers what I've heard. I've heard powerful statements here. The first one from Pastor Mudiri is, a supportive parent is a parent who actually espouses the independence of the new marriage. That my daughter is now married and my son is married. And because they are married, let them stand alone in terms of decision making and whatever. But there's an element of independence. And then you spoke of standing alone, I'm sure, in terms of self-sustenance. They can take care of their lives without you, and you can support them because you are saying you will not continue to be there as a parent. These guys may remain behind. You want to leave behind the people who can survive on their own, whether it is economic decision making and what have you. And then, Prof. Mukwena, you are saying a supportive parent is one who knows boundaries. That here, I cannot cross this boundary. Otherwise, I am interfering. Is there an example of a boundary that parents should not cross, maybe from Sipo and Barbara there? Any boundaries? Because we don't want to be too rhetoric and too symbolic. Let's come out in the open. What are the boundaries?
Okay, so let me start, and I love practical things, because sometimes when we talk, we fail to give proper examples. So I want to give a real life example.
Exactly.
And I'll give myself as that example. So when I got married, those many years back, when we got married, we were just fresh out of university. Now, my father-in-law was someone who was very successful where he was in Malawi, also a very successful businessman. Right?
Yes.
And on the night of our wedding, and as we're celebrating, he sat me down. He introduced me to a group of his 8 friends. And he said, young man, I know you are just about to start up in life.
Yes.
I am your father and I can help you out. We can help you organize yourself a job, and we can help you with a house.
Yes.
Until you are, but this is a choice that we are giving unto you. If you feel that no, you are able to do 1, 2, 3, it's up to you. But this is an option that is there. Yes. Now, for me, this is someone who is saying to me, I can help out if you feel that my help, you want to take that. However, if you want to go at it alone, I also have no problem with that. But know that here, it's still home, and you can still come back home.
So, in other words, while you are there, you are appreciating the fact that your father-in-law was giving you choices.
Right. So my response to him was, I have already laid out these plans.
Yes.
I am going to go out and try out these plans.
Yes.
Should these plans not work, I know that I can come back home.
Okay.
So for me, this was him now providing help, understanding that he has got boundaries. I am now the man in his daughter's life.
Yes.
Right? So I am now the one that she has cleaved to.
Yes.
So his understanding of the verse in Genesis 2:24 was, she is not joined to him. Okay, he's holding her, but she has left him. That's why there's no breaking there. But when she has come to me, she has cleaved, which means she has joined like a glue.
Yes.
So if he's to take her away from me, he's breaking now, and there's a problem.
There's a problem,
Right. So he understood these boundaries that have been put in here.
Okay. No, that's fine. I really appreciate that. Parents can see that our children need help. That includes even parents-in-law. They can see, hey, these newlyweds need help, but we are not going to impose the help. We are going to negotiate it. If you want it, fine. If you don't want, fine. The choice is yours. And to you, that's a supportive parent.
Yes.
Let me just come in here, Pastor.
Yes.
Let me just come in here and say, like I said, there are a lot of gray areas when you talk about this thing. And we want to avoid being prescriptive. And I like what people did. We need to be descriptive.
Yes.
And in that regard, I want to say, and like I said, I don't want to complicate it too much, but remember that sometimes young people, think they know,
right?
And they think they've mapped it out nicely.
Yes.
But they've been there as a parent for a very long time.
Yes.
And you can see that much as they think that they've mapped it out nicely,
yes,
definitely they're going to hit a brick wall at some point or another.
Yes.
So while you teach them, and while you espouse the fact that they should actually be independent,
yes,
it is very important as a parent to actually be there. And at times, you need to force yourself to be there for their sake. Now, imagine, I want you to think about this new couple and compare them with a little child who's still learning how to walk.
Yes.
There are times when the little child thinks that now he's ready to walk on his own without you holding his hand.
Yes.
And as a parent, at some point, you need to hold his hand. And he might say, no. I can walk on my own. And you know better as a parent. You say, no, you can't walk on your own. And there are times when a child thinks he can walk on his own. And as a parent, you need to put him there and say, now it's time for you to walk on your own. And the child might say, I'm not able to do that. So there's a balancing act here that needs to happen. And you need the wisdom of God, Solomonic wisdom, to know when you have to hold tight the hand and move with the child, and you need to know when you need to let go. Now, let me give you a practical example from my own situation. When my son got married, I can tell you right now that my son thought he had it all, because at that time, you know, he had his own businesses and he was successful and he was able to do. But let me tell you, we put rules down, and we said, you are married, you are working, you have your own business, you're making money, but let me tell you, you are going to be with us for at least a year with your wife. You're going to live with us for a year, because we need to teach this wife of yours how to cook here in this. We know she knows how to cook from home, but she doesn't know how to cook from this family here. No, she's not only for you, she's going to teach all of us at some point. So she needs to know how to cook. She needs to know how to iron, how we iron clothes here, how we wash clothes here. Not only that, she needs to know how to speak our language. All right? She's married into the Tswana family here. She's coming from a speaking family.
Maybe she's coming from England,
we need to socialize her. We need to culturize her into this culture, into this family. So they stayed with us for 1 year and 2 years, and after that we said, now you get out and you're on your own. And now they're on their own and they've learned. So I'm saying there's a balancing act we need to do here.
Yes. Okay, let's hear what other panelists think.
Yes, I would like to.
I told people
the scenario that Pastor Mudiri is describing is exactly what our parents went through. You would get married and you lived with your in-laws for a while.
Yes.
There was wisdom in that. In that you actually your mother-in-law, your father-in-law know your husband best, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And are able to impart that knowledge and wisdom to you on, you know, all his favorite foods. How does his mother make them? Because there have been times when you hear, oh, my mom makes this better, like my mom's cooking. And you look at the wife's face and already she's being compared to mama's cooking, and things go sour. We know that. But, you know, for me, it's a case of, as parents, knowing when to let go, as you said, you know, and giving the man or the woman permission to actually move on and build their life, build their home with their partner, and make those decisions on their own. Because the challenge comes in now. I've been listening to my parents half my life. Everything they say, I do. You know, we are told to honor our parents. And suddenly, overnight, I'm supposed to, you know, become independent. My allegiance is now to my partner. And in most cases, that's where the conflict comes in now. Do I listen to my parents? And that permission to actually go from the parents helps us as young people to confidently go on and make those decisions on our own without any misgivings of, you know, thoughts that my mom and dad said. because now you are married to somebody else, and you need to actually be loyal, and not that you're not honoring your parents, but parents need to give that permission that my daughter, my son, it's time for you now to stand on your own and make those decisions. I'll use an example as well, Pastor. When I met my husband, he was not Adventist.
Yes.
And for a while, he would go to his Sunday church, Anglican. And my mother-in-law said to him, look, do they worship a God where your wife goes to church? And he said, yes. And she said to him, well, if you get there, go with your wife. If you get there and you find that they worship something else, that's not the God I've taught you about.
Yes.
You have my permission to run away. And for me, already there is a mother or a parent who's building and giving that capability, as Pastor Mudiri has said, to the child, to show them that, look, it's fine. There is no expectation from the rest of the family for you to still cling to the tradition or whatever it is that has been taught when you found something else. So that's an example I would like to share. But it's important, and for me as Kuzaisha's mother, definitely teach her the right things. When the time comes, I need God's wisdom for me to let go and trust her to make the right decisions.
Right. All of you, I need you to find me. I'm a bit lost. I want to be found. Look, I didn't have the privilege of getting married and then staying with my mother for 1 year. After the wedding, we went for the honeymoon. After the honeymoon, we went to our house. We started learning how to cook for each other, how to press clothes for each other. We started how to quarrel, shout, and how to solve our own problems without supervision. There was no supervisor to tell us you are doing it right, you are doing it wrong, and until we finally got it. And sometimes where we were not so sure and where there's stalemate, that's when we fell back to our parents to say, we're having this challenge. They tell us what to do. We go back to our arena and we move on with our lives. I'm looking at, is it not possible that the training that Pastor Mudiri is talking about, can it be given during courtship or before marriage, so that marriage then tends to be like an exit point, that the training we have given you for the past 25 years is this, and I'm sure now you can take care of a wife. I'm trying to think that it may be a bit awkward, maybe as a ground rule, to say you are married, stay with us for 2 years. I don't know how many young people would be able to do that.
Well, let me come in there. I think it will differ from one culture to another.
Maybe come home.
Yeah, the example that I've just given is an example that we practice in my culture, for instance.
Yeah, in the Tswana culture, that works.
Yes, in the Tswana culture, that actually works. And I know that it might not work in other cultures, but also it might not work, not because of differences of cultures, but as Professor Mkwena did say, because of personalities and other factors. So it might not work. Now, the training that I'm talking about does not necessarily have to happen under the same roof, by the way. So it's not a question of the location, but I think it's a question of transmission of values, of knowledge, of the home into which you are actually getting married. Now, let's not forget, and I know that the audience here is broader than just African.
Exactly. We may have a Eurocentric culture listening.
Exactly, but you see, from an African perspective, and I want to say all cultures, when you marry into a family, you become part of that family. It's unlike in the Western culture where it's my thing and your thing. So it's just the two of us. Everybody else go jump into the lake. It's not that type of a thing in an African culture. In an African culture, when you marry me, you marry my brothers, you marry my mother, you marry my father, you marry our dogs and our hens, and when we practice witchcraft, that's why we have to train.
Practice witchcraft.
And how it's done here. So what I'm saying is that the training does not necessarily have to happen under the same roof. So in situations where the daughter-in-law cannot stay with her in-laws and they have to go out and find their own place, the family can still teach and train, but as Professor Mkwena said, and as Barbara said there, and as I said earlier on, you need to strike the balance. You need to know when you are actually teaching and when you are now controlling, because the two are different.
Yes. Also because you can get married and go and move away immediately. But if I'm an interfering mother-in-law, I'll still interfere, whether you're in Zambia or in Australia. So that's why I think it's a matter of me as a mother-in-law knowing my boundaries, when to interfere, when to advise. Sometimes they don't even appreciate the advice. You may be coming with good intentions, but they may not appreciate it depending on their experiences and things like that. So learning the boundaries, I think it's important, and also being painful as it is, but being prepared to let your son or your daughter to bend her fingers, learn from the mistakes. Yes.
You are balancing it up. I'm still with Pastor Mudiri, but I don't want to put him on the spot. It's to the four of you. He says, my son got married, and then we laid the rules, and automatically I ran into problems. My son got married, and we laid the rules. I will take you into our Shona culture. Maybe it's not Shona culture over there in Zimbabwe, where somebody gets married, like Barbara was saying, she was Adventist and the husband was Anglican. I'm sure she was lucky to have parents-in-law who say you can go to the church of our daughter-in-law. But traditionally, when a woman gets married, everything about you is the Ngwaru way. Whether it is church, the Ngwaru way. The cooking way, the Ngwaru way. The way to support parents, the Ngwaru way. Doesn't this cause problems?
Well, let me come in there, Pastor, and say, when I said I laid the rules, I did not create those rules in the four corners of my own head. Remember that I'm raised in a particular culture. Yes. I've inherited a culture.
You are speaking of that.
Yes, I've inherited a way of doing things.
Yes.
And let's not fool ourselves here and say when we bring up children, we really bring them up to be whatever and whoever outside of who we are as a family and as a people. We exist within a culture. We exist within a particular systems of beliefs. You understand what I mean? For instance, it would be pretentious. It would be pretentious to say, once my child is married, then I can say I do not care whether he continues to be to follow a particular religion or not. So when I say I laid the rules, these are rules that even my own children, by the way, grow up having accepted and believed in and having assimilated. So that is why it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier for my child to embrace that and my daughter-in-law to embrace that, because they know that this is not just daddy's rules. This is a cultural practice of the people into which I am actually married.
Okay, no, that's fine. Having said that, do you see the four of you that just by the 5 of us here, I don't know how many viewers are there out there. You can actually see that sometimes it's very difficult to separate being supportive and being interfering. Or when you say supportive, another culture may look at that and say, "Oh my goodness, that is interfering." But when you looked from another culture, says that's what a parent-in-law should do. That's what our culture says. That is what we should do. So you see, there is a conflict of contract of understanding what is supportive and what is interfering. And maybe for some few minutes, let's try to bring in interference so that we can judge the two, either culturally, church-wise, or legally, whatever the case may be. How does an interfering parent project themselves?
An interfering parent.
We don't want to be the only one, as if we are putting him on the spot. I want all of you to speak. Please, can you advise me, when is interference, and how can you say this is interference?
I'll come in after Elder Gui.
Let's just go back. Let's just go back to the two. Okay.
Yes.
Let's just go back to the two words. When you support somebody, you give this person an impetus. This person has already made a decision about something. You support the person in what they want to do. When you interfere, it means these children want to do something and you interfere. You somehow go in contrast to what they want to do. So that is the basic difference between the two. So yes, I may be, even amongst the Botswanas, there are differences, in amongst the families.
Yes.
The personalities are different. So what somebody may see, what I as my daughter-in-law or my son-in-law may see as interference. So I'm saying knowing the boundaries is important, but also what I call the God-given wisdom to know the difference between supporting and interfering.
Yes.
Right. Let me just put it simply and say, and interfering parents are those who want to create the marriage of their children in the image of their own marriage.
Okay.
And that's how I can put it simply. So basically you are saying the marriage of my children must actually mirror our own marriage. And as a result, we are always there to say, don't do this, do that, don't do this, do that. Why? So that your marriage can be like our marriage. Now you're beginning to interfere like that way. That is why I said earlier on, there needs to be a balance. And it's a critical balance that has to be back here.
Okay.
Pastor, if I can just...
there?
Yeah, if I can just jump in there. So straight from what Pastor Modire said now, right? And looking back at the previous comment, by you actually saying that we've culturally done it this way, so this is how it should be done, is already some kind of interference in a way there.
Yes.
Right. Now, I want to speak about a certain type of phenomenon that's there. And most people might not know it. You might have heard of narcissistic parents-in-laws, right? So it's narcissistic parent-in-laws. Now, it is. So this is the way it is now. What I want to do, and they will come out as though they are being very supportive, right?
Yes.
But in actual fact now, because and this can happen, especially to and research we have that 62% of single mothers can fall into this. This is research now, where because you are a single mother, you have brought up, for example, this young man, right?
Yes.
You have taken him to school, you have provided everything. He now has a college degree. You know, you have taken care of him basically so that at some point he will take care of you.
Yes.
Right? Now, all of a sudden, here comes a Victoria, right? And then gets married to your son.
Yeah.
Now, Victoria is now the main person there, and you have been left alone. But lo and behold, this child is the one who's supposed to be taking care of you.
Yeah.
So you continuously are there saying I am helping, but in actual essence, in actual essence, you end up interfering in there because you also want something from there. Right. Now you think you're helping sometimes. So like Pastor Mudrik gave the example. I'm going to teach him how to cook what my son likes. I'm going to teach her how to iron, how my son likes it to be ironed. I want to. So in other words, you think you're helping, but in actual essence, it's an interference because maybe this poor girl is thinking, but I mean, we've also got a way that we iron. Maybe he might like it that way. Maybe I've ironed for him before, and this is how he liked it. I've cooked for him before, and he liked it that way. So sometimes,
Pastor, let me help the young man here.
I mean,
Let me help the young man. Let's not make examples an argument.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Because then we're losing the principle.
We lose the focus. Yes, I appreciate that.
Yes, we lose focus.
It's not
we should not take examples and turn them into main arguments. I was making an example with cooking and all this. All I'm saying is that there is a philosophy of life that we transmit to our children. We do that, and we can't apologize for that, by the way. And we don't need to apologize. And we do want them to carry this philosophy of life to their children and to their children's children. And we can't give excuses for that. We can't apologize for that. It's also biblical. You know, God says to Abraham, you teach your children, they must teach their children, and their children must teach their children unto whatever generations. We can't apologize for that. So let's not take examples and turn them into main.
I just used the same example that you used.
Just hold your horses. Right. I just want to stand where Pastor Mdiri is standing. Sipo, you have never been a father-in-law. You are a prospective father-in-law, and Barbara, you've never been a mother-in-law, and you are moving in that direction. Now, put yourself in the situation of Pastor Ngwaru. I've got a daughter-in-law, I've got a son-in-law, and Mrs. Mkwene has got 2 daughters-in-law. Mudiri, I don't know, he said how many? Your son is married. I don't know how many. Daughter-in-law. You have 1 daughter-in-law. Can you imagine? I am Pastor Ngwaru, and my son's marriage is shaky. Do you think, like Mdiri is saying, I would just say, let's pray, and maybe there are things that are happening in their world, and the marriage is threatened. Doesn't that open a door for a parent to say, look, my wife, our children need help. We can't leave things at that. Maybe they are fighting every day, and what have you? These things happen in marriage, and your children, you can see your child is being beaten every day, or and stuff. What do you do?
Let me assist you with a very simple example. Let me assist you with a very simple example here. I come from a family where there was nobody consumed alcohol. Nobody consumed alcohol, and my parents were not what you'd call very strict Christians. Actually, only my mother was an Adventist, but my grandparents were not Adventist, and my great-grandparents were not Adventist as well. But nobody in the family consumed alcohol, and I don't consume alcohol. And let me tell you, I don't want to see my children consuming alcohol, and I don't even want my children-in-law consuming alcohol. And when I see that happening, it is my right as a parent to actually say, who in this family have you ever seen consuming alcohol? There's nothing wrong with
and there's nothing wrong with you asking that question, Pastor. But at the end of the day, if the person you are talking to doesn't want to stop, and unfortunately for you, your son or daughter has decided that's where they want to settle, the best you can do is advise. You know, for me, it takes us back to the. It takes us back to the relationship.
Okay, Pastor, just hold your horses. Let Barbara finish.
It takes us even back to the relationship we have with God. You know, He tells us, He's given us the rules. But the question I have for all of us is, do we always follow those rules? But He still persistently follows us and asks us to come back. And for me, I would like maybe to add on to and ask a question. What happens when a child wants to take a different course, you know, to what you are prescribing? Maybe what he grew up with, he doesn't necessarily subscribe to. Maybe Mama's muhudu or whatever way of cooking was never the best, and we want to impose that on them. But to give other examples of interference, practical examples, my husband and I are planning something, and the next minute he comes to me and says, yeah, but I spoke to my parents, they said we should do it this way. So already, Mama and Daddy are coming into the relationship already, and they are, you know, and the other one is, I've heard stories where on the wedding night, the husband wants to go off on honeymoon, Pastor Ngwaru, and the father says, yeah, but I want my daughter to stay another 2 more nights. So already, you know, like, what are you doing to that relationship? And Pastor Ngwaru, I can share a story where parents came to pick up a daughter who was beaten up. And guess what? The following day, she was back. So we can only come in as parents and give advice to our children. And speaking as a child who constantly gets advice from her parents as well, at the end of the day, it's what Tapio and I decide to do that we continue and do, not that our parents in the background are not giving that advice. So we do listen to you as our parents, but sometimes you need to also trust us to make a decision that is not based on what your experiences and prejudices and you know, what you see is best for us. Yeah.
I hear what Barbara's saying, but maybe let's come back to the discussion. The discussion is about interference or supportive. So whether you interfere or you are supportive, the children eventually will do whatever that they want to do. But the focus here today is, how do I know as a mother-in-law whether I'm interfering or I'm being supportive?
Correct.
Yes, I am sure. We want to go to. I'd seen a question. They will come back to it when it comes. That's exactly what we want to do tonight, to understand what is being supportive and what is to interfere. At the beginning of the interview, I had thought I understood in a certain way, but then as we went further in the discussion, then you lost me. Let me go back to the beginning of the discussion when we were saying, what is marriage? When we were trying to define marriage, we were saying, or supportive parent, we were saying, these are parents who will help you, who will foster independence in decision making, and who should be a stand-alone, and who must detach, but the association may continue to be there. But now, as we move into understanding how to apply independence and the detachment and whatever, I can still see that there is still parental entanglement in the new marriage, and for how long it will depend with culture. And this is where I think we need to be very definitive. What do we mean by independence, stand alone? Like, let me give you examples. I've got adult children, whether they are married or they are not married, and whether in the Ngwarus we have been doing things in a certain way, they will tell you in your face that, Daddy, for me, I want to do my things this way and that way and that way and so forth. And you can say, hey, Nyasha, I'm the pastor of the Adventist church and I am your father. And you simply tell me, I appreciate you are the pastor and you're my father and whatever. But for me and my wife, we want to do things this way. And when me and my wife allow that, we think like we are giving them independence. And at the same time, we can provide support for that independence to work. I don't know. Sipo, how are you hearing me?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100%, Pastor. I think let me give it as another example. As a parent, you are a continent called Africa.
Yes.
The children are the countries called Zimbabwe, Malawi, Tanzania, whatever. Yes. As a continent of Africa, you cannot then be their government. Yeah. Because Malawi and whatever are their own government who think by themselves and who should be allowed to make their own decisions. Mm-hmm. You see, now when you're now being supportive of these things, you earlier on asked the question, what if you see that there's beatings that are happening there?
Yes.
What we should also then be discussing is how do you approach that? Because you can't leave it like that, even from a biblical perspective.
Yes.
So it could even be somebody from next door that you don't even know that you're seeing being beaten. You cannot just leave it and say it's none of your business.
Yeah, no, you can't.
See? Right. Yeah. So then that brings in another discussion, however, of how then do you approach your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law, when these kind of issues come in. However, on the independence, they need to be a standalone also. Okay. But always know that they can come to you as a source of help and assistance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pastor,
but still more, before you come in, Pastor, still more.
Yeah.
Help me and help my viewers. What is to interfere? I thought I had something like when a parent becomes part of the decision making in this new marriage, you are definitely interfering. Is that correct? Are there other forms that are very clear that when a parent across cultures, that when a parent-in-law does this, definitely they are interfering? I know, Barbara, you had said something.
So another example, So another example that will come in there, where it's definite, is another aspect that comes is especially when it comes to a Christmas holiday. So we're Africans here. So what would happen is Christmas holiday, everybody's going back home.
Yes.
But now, if now your daughter is married, you cannot continue telling her that, remember, what we do here is a Christmas Day, 25 December, Christmas Day, everybody's here.
Comes to my house.
Yeah, comes to my house. You have to do that. You see now, because now that's also now interfering in whatever plans and decisions. That also, this side where your daughter is married, the husband, they can have also other, other plans that he might have also with you. So that's another example that I can give there.
Yes. Okay.
Can I just give examples and I'll let the elders talk after that?
Yes.
So for instance, I think for me, the whole relationship, marriage relationship, we know starts before we get married, right?
Yeah.
And in most cases, you find that, and this goes back to your earlier comment, Pastor, where you were talking about training people before we even get married, so that we probably don't need to, and the question that comes in for me is, how many of us, before we even get married, spend time even getting to know, our in-laws, because as Africans, again, it's not about just you and I. We all have a history. We were born by parents who still will rely on us to assist them going into the relationship. So there's a gap already there for me that you, Pastor Mudiri, and Prof. Rakwena can actually take advantage of and try and fix that, because from a counseling perspective, I think the the bridal showers don't do justice.
Yes.
Because we walk in there, we don't even know what exactly to expect from this. But sometimes the interference even starts when people are dating. What is your mother or your parents saying about your boyfriend, girlfriend? But I've seen cases where even at the wedding, I can't choose my own bridesmaids.
Yes.
Because mother-in-law has decided her daughters are going to be my bridesmaids. Do you see?
Yes.
Already, those are red flags. And for me, in such situations, I think it would even be best to not go ahead with things, with the ceremony or things like that. Coming to the raising of children, this is how I raised you. This is how we raised you. You can't raise your kids this way. This is the school your children are going to go to. Your wife should not work, because in this family, women don't work, So those are the examples for me of interference. I think I gave an example of supportive parents. When I got married, my job takes me everywhere, but my mom would stay with the child. To the extent I was even afraid my daughter would forget me, because I would get there and say, Mama, I'm here to see her. And she'd be like, hi, Mom, and bye, Mom, When they were born, my mother-in-law was here, helping me to look after the children. So there, many ways you can come into your children's life as a parent-in-law and give that support that they need without you really coming in and deciding or interfering to the extent that every aspect of that relationship or family goes according to your own plans and is implemented according to what you want to be done.
Okay. Can we?
Can I just come in here?
All right. Before you come in, let me just one sentence. Just one sentence, Pastor. Before you come in, I seem to have settled with the view that, like Pastor Mudiri has already alluded to, these things, whether we want or not, culture plays a role in terms of understanding what interference is and what being supportive is. And sometimes we may be speaking from postmodernism, some of you, and individualism, and some people may be speaking from group mentality and what have you. In Africa here, we move. We are a people together. But when we cross the ocean Atlantic, I'm a person. Even if we can spend the whole night discussing this, we'll still come back to what does our church say about this, and what does our culture say about this. But within those differences, I am sure there are extremes that people can avoid. And I'm sure that could be the balancing act where, in terms of your culture, what are the extremes? And in terms of your culture, what are the extremes? And in terms of social value and trends that are going on, we now have the women empowerment. We have postmodernism. We have all these things coming in. I am sure even parents need to sit down and relook and say, the way we used to do things, is it still working today? And young people also need to sit down and say, are we not going too far and we have left our culture far behind? Maybe that's why we're having challenges like this. I think it needs objective perspective and analysis from both ends. Maybe Pastor Mudiri, you can come in. I don't know. I was just trying to sum up the struggle I am having, trying to understand both ends and try to make meaning out of it.
Yeah. And then I'll come after Pastor Muji.
I agree with you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And I think your summation of this discussion is spot on, is accurate. Yes. And I think that's what I said earlier on, that the whole situation is very complex. Yes. Right? It's very complex, and it has too many permutations in it. Yes. And as a result, we cannot be prescriptive about it.
Exactly.
We can only be descriptive. All right. So it's basically we describe situations. Yes. We run into a serious danger when we start prescribing and saying this is how it should be. Yes, and let's understand that danger is both ways. When we as parents-in-law start prescribing, it becomes dangerous. But it becomes also dangerous when young couples start prescribing also to us. Yes. It becomes also dangerous. So that is why we need to actually balance it. But this is what I was going to say. We would have failed this discussion if we are not going to make as a point of reference the Bible and God in this matter. Now, when you look at the Bible and you look at when you look at what God is teaching us, and somebody made an example of God as a parent, value Genesis and value transmission are very important in our social life and in our family life. Yes. We grow up to generate certain values, and we don't generate them in vain. We generate them in order to transmit them. Yes. And when we bring up these children and when they go get married, we espouse the hope, we cherish the hope that they will carry on with those values. For instance, I'm an Adventist, we are an Adventist family. We're bringing up these children within this context. Yes. It is my hope, I cherish a hope that after my child has gotten married, my child will continue to be an Adventist. And even after marriage, I will still encourage my child to be an Adventist, as an example. And examples abound. You know, it's not only in terms of religion, but also in terms of many other things. So we are still within our right as parents to expect our children to continue with what we have taught them, because we believe that what we taught them is correct. If you are going to be a parent, if you're going to be a parent and having brought up children, and you say after you get married you can throw this away in the name of independence, in the name of standing alone, then you have a big problem. Let me just one big sentence and close. There cannot be interference without permission. So if parents are interfering, it is because the children have allowed them to interfere.
Before Mukwena comes in, I want you guys to prepare prepare an answer to this question. Pastor Mdiri, what you are saying for me works best when you are looking at your son as the one who must perpetuate your traditions and values and religion. But remember, you may also have a daughter. Your son grew up as an Adventist. You want him to continue with Adventism. You also have a daughter that is also an Adventist who is going to be married by an Anglican. Are you saying when they go out, they must go and be an Adventist there or be an Anglican? What will this daughter say? Because your son is an advantage. He has your protection right where you are. But your daughter who is going to another family, are they going to say, here we are Satanists? That Adventism of yours, here we have a tradition of being Satanists. You are going to brew beer for our festival here. What are you saying about? Okay, Dr. Mukwena, Professor Mukwena, I'm just trying to complicate things here.
Thank you. I think I want to repeat a bit of what I said before. Yes. Whether you are seen as a supportive or an interfering parent. It depends on your personality or actions, but also the reception of your daughter-in-law or your son-in-law. If, for instance, I get married to the Mokwena family and my mother-in-law maybe facially looks like a teacher that used to beat me, it may create that thing. So whatever that she does, I see it as interference rather than support. So that's why I'm saying it's very personality based.
It's personality based.
It is, but it is also based on our experiences. What my mom said about her mother-in-law.
Yes.
Maybe her mother-in-law used to be cruel, etc. When I get into a marriage and then I decide I'm not going to be treated like my mom was treated as a young bride. Therefore, whatever my mother-in-law is going to say, I already resisting it. So it has a whole lot of personality things, experiences, etc., etc. However, I do think that it helps. Not that it solves the whole problem. It helps if, as a parent, you have God-given wisdom to know where your boundary, or to draw your own boundary, to say, if my children feel strongly about this, I'm not going to push anyway. And by the way, it doesn't always mean that the daughters-in-law and the sons-in-law are angels and the parents-in-law are interfering. Thank you.
Right. Correct me here, the four of you. I'm a father-in-law. I'm a father-in-law. And let me be very definitive in terms of boundaries. Number one boundary is let my children make their own decisions there. Let them make their own decisions there. So when it comes to decision making, let them make decisions for themselves. Number two, stay away from your children's money. Stay away from your children's money. Their money is their money. I don't want to be poking my eyes every month and to see what is going to come my way. I never did that to my parents. I don't want to expect more care from my children than I did to my own parents. And therefore, I've decided my children's money is their money. They will give it to me when they feel like I don't want to be their dependent. I want to be financially independent. The more financially independent I am, the better it is for our relationship and what have you. The other area that I feel like it's a no-go area is how many children should my children have? If they think like they want 2 children, is their business. If they don't want children, is their business. I'm saying, please correct me. That I'm not talking fiction. I'm telling you what I do. Whatever. It's basically we wait to hear from them to say, oh, Daddy, I'm pregnant, or we are expecting. It is their business. We don't get into that arena, and what have you. Then the other arena is basically when it comes to. I'll slightly differ with Pastor Mdiri. Is the area of religion. If I have done a good job to Nyasha, my son, Nathaniel, and Rachel, my daughter, and Cecilia, I'm basically saying my Adventism and my influence may be important, but in terms of them standing alone between them and God, once you get married, please, issues of religion are in your domain. If you don't want to be an Adventist, it's up to you. If you want to be an Adventist, it's up to you. You must be adult enough to decide how you want to treat your God. You don't want my shambok and my supervision in that particular area. Even though there's nothing wrong in suggesting to our children, look, children, you grew up with these values. These values are very important. But I'm not saying that in terms of decision making. Are you getting the point? The other
let me come in there, Pastor, and say.
Let me finish. You come in, Pastor. So in terms of religion, is there right, but I can continue to influence. I can continue to influence. And then the other area is, much as we don't want our children to fight, but sometimes give them space to fight until it is necessary to intervene. Don't be there each time there's a quarrel, there's a squabble, there's what. You are always, you are just jumping in there to make sure you extinguish the fires and whatever. These are some of those things that me and my wife have told ourselves our children need the space in these domains. And if we guard that jealously, maybe it is up to them on how they treat their marriage and how they want to treat our relationship with them. Friends, it's time is very unfair. We are almost going beyond time. It's very unfair. Let me ask each one of you. I've given you my summarization. If there's a parent law, we have understood what I've said. We have understood what you are saying. I want to give each one of you the closing 1 minute. Give us your closing. What do you think is very critical to this topic that you want parents-in-law and children-in-law to hear from you?
Let me come in, Pastor, and say, I need to correct you somewhere. Can I just need to correct something.
In a nutshell, yeah, correct me. That's why we are here. Correct me, it's okay.
Yeah. I don't know what you are disagreeing with me on.
No, I'm not.
Let me explain. I think you got an impression that I'm saying when I brought up children as Adventists, they must continue being Adventists and they have to be Adventists. I never said that. I said when I bring them up to be Adventists.
That's what we heard.
Now I'm going to hear properly. No. Let me tell you the words I used. I said, I bring up children to be Adventists. I cherish the hope that they will continue to be Adventists.
Yes.
When I bring up children with certain values, I cherish the hope that they will continue with those values.
Amen.
At the end of the day, I don't bring up children, for instance, who do not drink, and then throw away the hope that when they are married, they will actually continue not drinking. I don't do that. And there's no parent who's normal who will do that. When you bring up a child to be something, that is why, by the way, the Bible says, bring up a child in a way that he should go, so that when he's old, he will not depart from that way. And that's all that I'm saying. Will the child not depart? The child may depart. But as a parent, you are cherishing the hope that this child will not depart from the
Amen. So, Pastor, having said that, what is your closing statement to this program? What is it that you say? If viewers can forget everything but this one point, please, you can cherish it and place it in your heart. Just in one line.
In one line, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier on when I began.
Yes.
I said, when we allow our children to get married, let's give them space to grow and develop and be independent and be and develop their own image and their own identity. But as parents, we are there in the back to guide them because we've walked this path, we have the wisdom, we know life, we have experienced it, and they can always come back to us and we can always guide them. We will advise, and if they take the advice, then God bless. If they don't take the advice, God bless nevertheless.
Yeah. No, that's a powerful statement, Pastor. Sipo, take home message to your peers.
No. It's Mama Mokwen. I'll speak last, Pastor.
Oh, you speak last.
Yes, Mama was wanted to speak. Yes.
Okay. Okay. My parting words are: when you get married as a young man or a young woman into a family, learn to espouse that family.
Yes.
If your heart is open and if there's open communication between you and your mother-in-law, the chances of conflict will be less. And you will look at her as your mother, and most people do not see their mothers as interfering. They see them as supportive. So I think if we change our mindset to espouse this family, and the parents-in-law also espouse this young man or this young woman, then there will be more support rather than interference. Thank you.
Amen. Appreciate that. By default, we'll go to Barbara because Sipo says he wants to give the last, you want to put, you call the icing on the cake.
So for me, yes, for me, Pastor, I agree with what Pastor Mudiri and Mama Mkwena are saying. For me, it all starts even in courtship, get to know them the same way you treat your siblings and your parents is actually the same way you will have to fit into that family. You fight with your siblings, you disagree with your parents, but at the end of the day, you still go back to them. As parents, Pastor Mudiri, for me, it's really appealing to parents to learn to let go and know when to let go. And in most cases, it's a case of you actually giving your child permission to grow and make decisions on their own and let them know that you're still there. And for us young people, there's nothing like just the two of us off into the sunset because we don't have experience in most cases. And sometimes the advice we get comes from a very good place. They're trying to help us. If it works for you, take it. If it doesn't, it's still fine. You've been blessed by Pastor Mudiri. You heard that. And at the same time, yes, Pastor Ngwarire said, stay away from the children's money. But we are also told to honor our parents and look after them,
Yeah. If it is your initiative, I appreciate that,
So, yes, it should be your initiative because we can have a 10-course meal and mama and daddy are sleeping hungry or, siblings are hungry. I don't know if that is blessed or, and again, it all depends on where you've been raised and where you come from. We cannot separate some of these things from who we are, and that's what I have to share.
Okay, no, thanks, Barbara. Sipo, we just barely have a minute to sign off.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, very briefly, as a son-in-law, as a daughter-in-law, love your parents-in-laws like they were your own parents. Have very open and loving and caring communication with your partner, so that when you are hurt by something, you can lovingly put it across, and this doesn't bring in an argument, and you can be very open even within your parents. So I think since I've only got the 30 seconds, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sipo, and thank you, Sipo. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Pastor Mudiri. Thank you, Prof. Mukwena. This has been a hot potato. And thank you for all the perspectives and angles that were coming from. And thank you for the wisdom that you have shared with the parents out there, including their children as well. And for you viewers, it was wonderful as usual to have you on the program. And I would like to think that you have learned something. Please, whatever works, apply, run with it. If you're in doubt of anything, the choice is all yours. But otherwise, we want to wish, like Pastor Mudiri says, when you are Abraham, you want Isaac to be successful. You want Jacob to be successful. You want Joseph to be successful until the fourth and whatever generation. That's why we are parents. We are parents forever. And forgive us for interfering where you think we are interfering. But sometimes we are interfering because we want things to move right in your marriage. But anyway, I still appreciate that as parents, let's respect our boundaries. you know, our vision is to make this channel a channel of choice for human development, relationship development, and whatever. And for you to be able to support this ministry, please follow us on our Facebook page, Let's Talk with Pastor Ngwaru. And also you can subscribe to our Let's Talk with Pastor Ngwaru YouTube channel. Until next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. again, have a blessed week and God bless you all. Goodbye.
Thank you, Pastor. Bye.
Bye.